Once again, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and welcome to Sling Talk Show.
Thank you
Now,
so
may I
much.
call?
Thank you for having me on this very important topic. Thank you.
Thank you. May I call you Steve? Yes.
Please do.
Okay. So, Steve, in one of your academic essays, you mentioned that your first experience with the death penalty at a young age was specifically in relation to the Julius and Ethel Rosenberg case in the 1950s. And to refresh everyone's mind, Julius and Ethel were accused of leading an espionage ring and that transmitted information to the Soviet Union at the time, not Russia, but Soviet Union, about the atomic bomb. Now, before their execution, Julius Rosenberg made an incredible remark. He said, there had to be a Rosenberg case because there had to be an intensification of the hysteria in America to make the Korean War acceptable to the American people. There had to be the hysteria and fear sent to America to secure increased war budgets. And quote, now, in comparison, in your opinion, is the American public currently experiencing high levels of anxiety and stress due to the Trump administration and the current state of the judicial system?
You have raised a lot of important issues right there in that first question because it touches on my own coming awareness of the cruelty and barbarity of the death penalty and how in that period in the 1950s there was a terrible Red Scare spread across the country due to McCarthyism and there was truly a hysteria surrounding that. I was about 8 or 9 years old. I would watch television, and it dawned on me that our government was slowly taking the steps to kill people because they had been convicted of a crime. It shocked my little 8 or 9 year old mind the notion that a government, not on a battlefield or in another circumstance, could actually kill its own citizens. And since then, because of my legal career and my policy work, I came to oppose the death penalty. I do think we are in a very serious period right now. In his first term, in the last days of Donald Trump's first term, there was a bloodbath of federal executions, upwards of 13 executions that had not been seen before. And he is threatened to resume and continue executions. So this issue is right before the American people, and I think it's time we take a serious look at the death penalty.
And also in this same essay, you stated that the more you study the Rosenberg case, the more you became convinced that the death penalty has no place in the constitution of democracy. Now, what do you mean by this statement?
That's exactly what I feel today, and when I wrote that and when I felt it earlier. We purport to be a country dedicated to our Constitution, to equality under the law, to fairness, and to the abolition of cruel and unusual punishments in the Eighth Amendment in the Bill of Rights. I think we have failed in that respect with regard to the death penalty. Most civilized countries around the world, and we'll probably talk about this, have abolished the death penalty. The death penalty is fraught with human error, and yet we take it upon ourselves to make the most ultimate judgment, which is to kill people as a form of punishment. I think it's barbaric. I think it's an outcast of an earlier era, and that's why I actively oppose capital punishment.
So, Steve, the United States does not have the highest number of death sentences in the world. The distinction actually belongs to China, although the number is not publicly known due to state secrecy. But excluding China, the countries with most publicly reported executions are, we all know, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq, with the United States ranking actually fifth or sixth in terms of known executions. Now, is the death penalty in the United States a remnant of racism that can be traced back to slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, and discrimination?
It's an excellent question. In our personal affairs and frankly in our governmental affairs, we ask, who is the company we keep? Who are we in company with? And the United States, when it comes to the death penalty, is in company with those countries that you listed. I mean, it is shameful that the United States of America should be fifth in the world of executing people, although executions have dropped because opposition to the death penalty has risen. I am convinced, because I study history, I write about history, that the death penalty is a legacy of the period in American history when there was human bondage, when human beings were bought and sold, when the value of those lives was little to none, and when southern states, with the complicity of northern states, engaged in free and open policing and eventually killing of black slaves. We came out of that with a sense of black Americans being an inferior race. We went into the Jim Crow period, segregation, discrimination, and racism right down to the present day. We are not yet a colorblind society, as the Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, would say. So racism is embedded in many of our institutions, and it's certainly deeply embedded in the death penalty.
Why do you oppose death penalty?
I think the death penalty is an example of what I've called a perfect punishment in an imperfect system. It's a perfect punishment in the sense that it's absolute, it's irretrievable, the individual is executed, there is never any chance for them to prove their innocence through further legal proceedings, there is no chance for clemency or mercy, they are literally removed from society. So it's perfect in a gruesome sense on that side of the equation. On the other side of the equation, it is riddled with a human error, from the arrests and police misconduct to prosecutorial misconduct to judicial misconduct, all the way through our system. And we have examples of that. We know that at least 200 people who were facing execution have been exonerated in the United States. We do know and believe that several people have been executed who were innocent. Cameron Todd Willingham in Texas, your viewers may want to look up that terrible case. So when you consider the aspects of fault, of being a faulty system, the high risk of convicting and executing an innocent person, the racism, the cost, the lack of deterrence, all of these issues we may expand on, but they add up to a deeply, I would call it in a gruesome sense, a fatal system, and it has no place in a country that purports to believe in justice and due process.
Now, you just said that our system is imperfect, and I got to ask you, is President Trump contributing to make it more imperfect?
I think President Trump, in so many areas, and we could have many other talks on your show about the legal aspects of what Donald Trump is doing. But what he has done overall, he has introduced a cruelty, I would say in many cases a sadism, into his policies. He is ignoring human life. He is ignoring the suffering of people. And I'm not just talking about immigrants who are detained and deported. I'm talking about people in our healthcare system, people who are literally on the verge of starving, and people who have been mistreated in our criminal justice system. That sadism and cruelty pervades our system, and I think it is reinforcing a kind of cruelty in many aspects of society, and certainly our criminal legal system is one of them, and the death penalty is emblematic of the worst in our system.
Short, his administration, would you say, is contributing to the dehumanization of our society, of our people?
A good way to say it. We in the movement to end the death penalty often say that we have to realize you're talking about human beings, not statistics, not some distant death chamber somewhere, but people. I've represented two people on California's death row. I have a pen pal and friend of 25 years on death row. These are, in his case, Bill Clark, productive citizens who are creative, who would immensely contribute to society if they were released. So these are human beings. These are people you could know in your own lives. They are being judged by the worst moment in their lives, and I'm talking about those who are with due process convicted and guilty. They are being judged at the worst moment in their lives. Who of any of us would want that in our lives? And then there are many who are actually innocent and facing death, which is unthinkable in what purports to be a free and just society.
Does the death penalty in the United States pose a risk of killing innocent people?
It does, and these are objective statistics, often coming from the FBI and other governmental agencies. These are not just exaggerations by advocates like myself. We pose, and I believe have engaged in the execution of innocent people. It has taken years for people to prove their innocence. There was a period of time where college students at Northwestern University, where I'm proud to have graduated, they were going back, reinvestigating cases and finding the evidence to prove that people had been wrongfully convicted and sent to death row. If on no other basis one were to judge the death penalty, and I frankly believe there are moral reasons and other reasons to condemn it, if you just said, would you accept those percentages when you get in an airplane to fly? Would you accept those risks that 4 wrongfully convicted people every year have been identified since 1973? Would you accept that if your surgeon committed that degree of malpractice? In our American society, we would not accept that risk, and yet we accept it. Although there is growing opposition to the death penalty, and I don't want to leave the impression that there isn't, because of the work of organizations that you've mentioned, of brave public defenders around the country and abolition groups in every state, there's a growing understanding among the American people of these deep flaws in the system, and I believe the time will come when the death penalty will be abolished. Only 27 states and the federal government currently use the death penalty. 23 states in law or practice do not. So we are approaching 50% and the tipping point in America in which people and legislatures and voters have rejected the death penalty. And I think the time will come, whether it's through ballot measures and law in our legislatures or our Supreme Courts in different states or in the U.S. Supreme Court, I do believe a time will come when the confluence of everything we've talked about today will lead to ending the death penalty.
What is the legality in terms of the death penalty of the state of California? Could you briefly just comment on this?
When Governor Gavin Newsom took office, one of his first acts was to impose a moratorium on executions, and he later closed the death chamber and is adopting a policy closer to the Scandinavian policy, which looks at public safety, not at cruel punishment. Twice, I and others have put a ballot measure to the California voters. Each time we lost only by a few percentage points on a controversial issue. We came almost within 50% to amend the California Constitution. And I believe because of our system, it has to be abolished by law unless the California Supreme Court strikes it down. That we came within a few percentage points. People are being more and more educated about the flaws in the death penalty. And at the right time, I believe abolitionists will come back to the voters of California to seek their endorsement to repeal the death penalty.
And now the last question I would like to ask you today. What's your perspective on whether Tyler Robinson, if convicted of murdering Charlie Kirk, should receive the maximum sentence of death? Are you in favor of this, against it, or undecided on this issue?
Now you and your listeners may have anticipate my answer. I'm against the death penalty categorically. It's been thrown at me at debates. Would I have opposed the execution of Adolf Hitler or any evil person? The death penalty is a measure of our humanity, not only the humanity of the defendant or the convicted individual. So I would oppose that death penalty. And I know people who have lost loved ones who then have opposed the death penalty because they see everything we've talked about. It will bring no closure to those who supported Charlie Kirk to execute Tyler Robinson. It will certainly not bring Charlie Kirk back, and it doesn't for any of those families who've suffered death in their families. Tyler Robinson should be tried in a fair and open justice system, and then, in my view, he should be penalized with a sentence of jail that is commensurate to himself and to balancing the aggravating and mitigating circumstances of his crime.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And do you have some final remarks on or anything that you like to say, to American society right now?
Very kind to have invited me. This was a very incisive conversation, and I'm grateful that we had it, and I'm grateful your viewers will get to see it and perhaps share it with others. I do believe it is in open debate of controversial issues like this that the American people can come to some serious conclusions, and I urge them to go to deathpenalty.org, the website of Death Penalty Focus, the organization on whose board I serve, as well as the Death Penalty Information Center, which you mentioned, which has extraordinary resources documenting everything we've talked about today. I think once the society is educated and informed that the death penalty, along with other cruel aspects of American society, will eventually be abolished.